reforms I'm proposing would not apply to those who are here illegally.
A day after calling the president a liar, Congressman Joe Wilson apologizes. But is that enough? Can you really call the president a liar? Send out a tweet and Armstrong's Army will arrive. The world's greatest cyclist and his legion of followers go for an impromptu ride in Griffith Park. Exactly. Just let it be. For the love of the Beatles, just let it be. The filter starts right now. It was invasive, it was humiliating, and apparently it is true. When Caster Semenya, the 18-year-old born a woman from Africa, won the 800 meters, the World Track and Field Championships, some wondered if she was a man. Semenya had been fighting off snide remarks about her masculine appearance for much of her life. The governing body for track and field demanded she undergo tests to confirm her sex. The test showed she has both female and male sexual organs. It showed she has no ovaries, but has internal male testes, which produce large amounts of testosterone. She never tried to deceive anyone because she didn't know. Now what? Should she hold on to her title as a woman? Should she lose it because she also has male sex organs? Where does she compete in the future? Our contributors tonight are actress and activist Debra Skelton. Debra, we're going to start with you here. I appreciate you being here. What
Absolutely.
do you think?
Nice to be here, Fred.
Should Semenya compete as a man or a woman?
I think she should compete as a woman. I think there are certain criteria that you have to look at. Number one, she's been living her life as a woman. She has not chosen it to live as a man. And you have to remember something. In conception, from zygote to embryo and from embryo to fetus, we are all born female first before we're born male. It's whether or not the clitoris develops. And since she's been living her life as a male and her male testes have not dropped externally outside of the body, and technically the clitoris is just a larger form of a penis or deformed larger penis, and she's been living her life as a female, she should compete. Yes, her testosterone levels are 3 times higher, but that just makes her a greater athlete, and congratulations to her for it.
But there's the issue. Her testosterone level is 3 times higher because she has the male testes. Does that give her an unfair advantage when she competes against women?
I won't say that it gives her an unfair advantage. It gives her an advantage, absolutely. But again, if we're looking at the criteria of whether or not she should compete as a male or a female, because I think competition is still should happen because she's an athlete and a fabulous one at that. I think if she's chosen to live her life and prior to being an athlete, chosen to live her life as a female, and that can be traced back, then technically and legally, she is a female.
All right. Now, yesterday we told you about Assemblyman Michael Duvall, who resigned after his X-rated conversation was picked up on a live microphone. Duvall also said he was not having an affair, which means his conversation about spanking might be one of his secret fantasies. Duvall said he was all talk, no action. Do you believe him?
No, I absolutely don't. I think politicians have a track record, and if we know this as lay people, politicians have a track record of lying in office. It's not uncommon. I think a lot of people who are in elite positions in society have a tendency to do that because they feel like they are above things. They put themselves on different pedestals because of what they do, how they do it, the echelon of money that they make. And the bottom line is I believe that he is a liar. I think he got caught with his hands in the cookie jar, and now he's trying to backtrack. But the bottom line is whether you backtrack or not, you resigning also says a lot. It's indicative of a lot. And I think that people have a tendency, whether they're politicians or otherwise, as human beings, when there are cracks in the structure of who they are, try to save face. And I think that's exactly what he tried to do. He's a liar. I'm calling him that myself. And he tried to backtrack. But more than anything else, being a liar, the thing that disappoints me is he's a coward.
And you know, another point of this, he also has preached family values, talked about the importance of the family unit. He's married.
Well,
he has
how
2
often
kids.
has that happened? How often have we seen ministers and people of the cloth who've also preached certain pious behavior and actually gone back on it? And I think those who preach the loudest are the ones that we should scrutinize the most.
All right, let's move on.
Okay.
Selling marijuana is big business. Legally, 966 dispensaries for medical marijuana are registered in Los Angeles. LA Times did a little homework. Here's what it found. At least 260 of them fall within 1,000 feet of a school, a library, or a park. That is the proposed distance in a law the city council has been kicking around for a couple of years. The ordinance is still pending with no vote yet scheduled. Recently, there's been an outbreak of robberies at some dispensaries. That being the case, Deborah, should they be farther than 1,000 feet, that is roughly the length of 3 football fields, from schools, libraries, and parks?
Absolutely not. I understand that if it were selling pornographic material, yes. But then again, what we do in our communities and how we do in our communities are about us being a part of our communities. You speak to your children, you talk to your children, and it's not as if a 12-year-old can actually get a dispensary card, go in and buy marijuana. It's not as simple or as easy as that. Regardless of where he thinks about it, or regardless of where she thinks about it, whether it's the neighborhood, whether it's magazines, whether it's posters, whether it's billboards, the bottom line is our communities in general are saturated with things that seem to be controversial. Again, a child can't walk into a dispensary and all of a sudden decide that they're going to buy marijuana and have it dispensed. So I think it's ridiculous to say this is what's causing the downside of our communities. Absolutely, it should stay there. Communities, let them stay in the neighborhoods. Let them stay absolutely in the neighborhoods.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with you, because I'm concerned with the element that may frequent a dispensary, given the fact that we are seeing an outbreak of robberies and we are seeing unseemly folks running up and trying to steal marijuana, maybe holding these places up. The point is, you don't need a kid walking out of school and all of a sudden they see a guy running with a gun with a bag of marijuana.
We have other issues to think about there, Fred. I understand that too, and yes, that may compound other issues. But let's worry about the kids that shoot each other in class. Let's worry about the kids that bring handguns to school. Let's worry about our education. Let's worry about making our children safer in our behaviors, our attitudes, and having that community spirit. Let's do that first, and then see if the dispensaries are still an issue.
No, I understand what you're saying, but you don't think that it's just not a good influence. I mean, it invites trouble.
I disagree with you. I'm not saying that it invites trouble whatsoever. Handguns can invite trouble. People don't kill people. Handguns.
Yeah, but
people
Deborah,
use handguns.
But Deborah, they're not selling handguns 1,000 feet from the school.
I understand that, but the bottom line is you can use a handgun just about anywhere, the same way that people use drugs just about anywhere. So even though the handgun isn't being sold in a community, it can be taken back to that community. So let us make us more community aware. Let us bond with our children and have the community be a safer place, and with knowledge, with education, with information. I don't believe that a dispensary will be the cause and the downside of a society or even a community. I really think that at this point, the dispensaries should stay in these neighborhoods and not have an issue. And I think we need to educate our children, take care of our children, watch out for our children. Again, our children can't walk into dispensaries and all of a sudden decide to buy something. And a well-raised child by the community or by their parents wouldn't have to go that route in the first place.
Now, I received some information. I think this is going to be good for you, Deborah, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
It's on how you can have a very happy, a fulfilling, long-lasting, loving marriage. This makes sense, doesn't it? You want to know this, don't you?
I already have it, but tell me more.
Oh, I'm going to give it to you right now. Sleep in separate beds. Dr. Neil Stanley of Surrey University Sleep Laboratory in the UK says, if you sleep in separate beds, you'll get a better night's sleep. It'll be better for your mental, physical, and emotional health. Dr. Surrey says if somebody snores, sleep in separate rooms. Now, Deborah, you're married. You are very much in love with your husband.
Very much.
Do you think sleeping in separate beds is a good idea?
It doesn't work for my marriage. It may work for some marriages depending upon how long they've been married. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that for people that are honeymooners. I wouldn't recommend that for someone who's married for less than 2 to 3 years. I might recommend that for someone who's been together for 5 to 10 years, or 10 to 15 years, or 15 to even 20 years. Absolutely. Why? Because they've gotten used to their bonds of marriage. They know their place within the relationship, and they feel comfortable enough to sleep away from each other. Chances are they have before in the past. So for people like that, yes. But I always believe that anything and everything in life has a criteria. I've been married for only 3 years. I wouldn't dare sleep separately from my husband. What I do is if there's a snoring situation, which there happens not to be most of the time, then I still try to fix that. There are plenty of things on the market to fix that. And it depends on what your bond is with that other human being. My bond is close because outside of the relationship of sleeping, I spend separate time with my husband. I have my own life. I am a separate entity from him. So when it comes to bed, me and my man in the same bed, hallelujah and amen. I'm not sleeping separately from my husband. It depends on the relationship. My relationship requires that I sleep with my man every night. And you know what it also requires from me? That I rub my man's feet almost 3 to 4 times a night. Yes, I do. I will rub my husband's feet. There is no shame to my game. And when he starts going to sleep, I put myself to sleep too, and I say good night. That's a good night for me, Fred.